Hello, back again, Dr. Coring with another episode of Real Health Talk with Dr. Coring. For those who do not know me, my name is Dr. Coring. I am a board certified internal medicine physician who's training to be an oncologist and or hematologist. And it is my goal and also my pleasure to educate common folks such as yourself regarding various health topics on how to be well. And so, what I like to do is I like to advocate for wellness by educating. And what I like to do is educate on these health topics to keep you well. And today, the health topic I would like to discuss is how can we use diet to help our blood pressure. And so, it seems as though diet plays an important role in managing our blood pressure. So much so that there was a study that essentially measured dietary approaches to stop hypertension. It's called the DASH diet, and it was studied and found out that when we use dietary approaches to stop hypertension, it can be beneficial by lowering the blood pressure. And so that's what I would like to talk about is the DASH diet. What are the dietary approaches to stop hypertension? And essentially, the DASH diet is a healthy diet plan that is designed to prevent or reduce high blood pressure. And high blood pressure is defined as a blood pressure greater than 120 as a systolic number and 80 as a diastolic number. And so it seems as though we should focus on using our diet as a tool to help prevent high blood pressure, but also a diet that focuses on preventing high blood pressure can also help reduce heart disease as well as help lower the cholesterol, which in turn helps reduce heart disease and also other cardiovascular disease, such as pulmonary artery disease as well, because it helps reduce atherosclerosis. And so foods that really focus on reducing high blood pressure essentially focus on foods that are rich in minerals such as potassium, calcium, and magnesium. And so focuses on diets that are enriched in vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. And also diets that are essentially low in fats, especially dairy fats. And focuses on products, essentially lean meat products, and also high fiber protein products. And so fish, poultry, beans, and nuts. And so when we talk about the DASH diet, the first thing I would like to discuss is salt. The DASH diet, or the diet, again, this is a diet approach to stop hypertension. And so when I say DASH diet, I'm talking about foods that are designed, or foods that we should focus on to reduce high blood pressure. And when talking about a diet plan that focuses on that, we have to talk about sodium and salt. And so we have to understand that salt plays a major role in increasing our blood pressure. Why? Why is that? It's because essentially when we have salt getting introduced into our bloodstream after we eat it in our diet, salt can essentially cause high volume because essentially salt brings in fluid, and bringing in that fluid essentially goes into our bloodstream and causes the pressure to rise because we're introducing now more volume into the bloodstream. And when we have more volume or more fluid in the bloodstream, that increases the blood pressure. And so reducing the salt reduces the volume or the fluid in our bloodstream. And that helps essentially decrease the blood pressure. And so how much salt is it recommend, or what is the recommended amount of salt that we should eat if we want to reduce our blood pressure? Well, essentially about 1,500 milligrams of salt per day. That's the lower sodium version of the DASH diet. All right. And so that's less than a teaspoonful of salt. That's not a lot. And so, how do we accomplish that? How do we accomplish only intaking 1,500 milligrams of salt per day? And so, there's various ways to do it. Eating more fresh foods, less processed foods. So, foods that are fresh, essentially refrigerated foods, fresh produce, things that are not on the shelf, things that are not in the can, things that are not readily cooked, things that you have to basically cook on your own. Staying away from fast food restaurants that already have a large portion of salt. Using salt substitutes. Instead of table salt, using herbs and spices. Limiting the condiments. So a lot of the dressings and the sauces, like the ketchups that we like to go to, has a lot of salt in them as well. Preparing food at home, checking the labels, the nutritional facts when we pick up foods off the shelf, seeing how much the daily salt content that we have per day, that's going to be really helpful. Remember, 1,500 milligrams per salt per day. And so you can look on the back of the nutritional label and they'll tell you how much salt. Swapping cheeses, using low sodium cheese is also, really important. Asking for less salt is also really important. And so I think the most important thing is the fresh foods, the home cooked foods, because it seems as though when we eat out, they're putting the salt in our foods already, and that one serving of something that's prepared for us at a restaurant or processed for us could have our daily requirement in that one serving. And so if we prepare the food ourselves, we know how much salt we're putting in the food. And so that's what I'm recommending, that we just prepare our own food. And that's one of the cornerstone components of the DASH diet is the sodium. And so that's why I wanted to spend the most time. We really have to control our sodium intake. Other components of the DASH diet, we talked about diets or foods that are rich in potassium, calcium, magnesium. And so those are your fruits, your vegetables. Those are going to have those minerals, just the fruits and vegetables. Sweet potatoes are good for these. Figs are really good. Dates. Fiber and protein is another component. And so where do we get our fiber? Fiber intake is really, really important. And so our vegetables are going to be very instrumental in our fiber intake. Also, the beans have fiber in them as well. Nuts, grains, all of those are fibrous foods. And then the protein. How are we getting our protein? And so lean protein, skinless chicken, taking the skin out the chicken, how we're preparing our meats is also important. So really lean protein like fish, chicken, the breast of the chicken without the fat is really good. Lean turkey is also good. So the lean protein, staying away from pork and beef is really good because the pork and the beef have a lot of salt content. And so ham, like holiday ham, for example, the holidays are coming up. Too much salt. Too much salt. We're going to reach our daily salt intake. So we have to be careful with those types of meats. And so I prefer lean proteins. Low foods that are low in saturated fats. And so that goes back to the lean proteins, the lean meats. And then we go to our daily servings. How much grain should we have per day? That's going to be very important. 6 to 8 servings of grains per day. And your grains could come in the form of cereal, rice, and pasta. Bread as well. But make sure the bread is whole wheat. 4 to 5 servings of vegetables per day. Leafy vegetables are very important. Green leafy vegetables. Raw vegetables, okay? Going to be really important. 4 to 5 servings of fruit per day is really important. Fat-free, low-fat dairy products is very important. 2 to 3 servings per day. And so your low-fat dairy products is going to be your low fat milk and your low fat yogurt, low fat cheese. Lean meats, we talked about that, 6 ounces per day. That's it. That's all you need. Make sure it's cooked as well. And then, you want to focus on nuts, seeds, dry beans, and peas, 4 to 5 servings. And that's where your fiber come into play as well. And then fats and oils, good fats and oils are really important. And you want to get 2 to 3 servings of that per day. One serving is like a teaspoon. And it could be, olive oil. That's a good fat. So fats that's coming from a nutritional source like vegetables. So limiting animal fat is going to be important. So fat coming from the olive oil is really, really important because it's coming from a nice, healthy, nutritional source. And then limiting your servings of sugary products. So 5 servings or fewer per week. And 1 serving is 1 tablespoon of sugar, jelly or jam, half cup of like lemonade or sorbet. But you want to limit that to 5 servings per week. All right. And so maybe 1 serving, one day, Monday through Friday, for example. Other components of the DASH diet is limiting your intake of alcohol, and caffeine. And so maybe 1 or 2 servings of an alcoholic drink per day. No more than 2 drinks a day for women is what's recommended. And then, men, we want to limit our intake for men, no more than 2 drinks for men. And for women, I want to clarify, no more than one or less for women. All right. And so ultimately, though, what I want to summarize with this episode is hypertension is prevalent. All right. Hypertension causes issues like cardiovascular disease. Hypertension is prevalent among African American or minority communities as well. And so hypertension can lead to heart failure as well. And so we need to control the blood pressure because controlling the blood pressure control heart failure, can prevent other diseases such as stroke. So cerebral vascular disease, that's stroke. Heart disease such as heart failure. Also kidney disease. High blood pressure can reduce chronic kidney disease and may even can reduce dialysis as well. High blood pressure can also reduce peripheral artery disease. All right, and so it can reduce these things. And how can we reduce high blood pressure? Well, we can control our diet. These are things that we have control over. And so having a diet that focus on limiting salt intake, so low in salt, having a diet that, and also what is low salt intake? 1,500 milligrams of salt per day. That's less than a teaspoon of salt. And also a diet rich in vegetables, a diet rich in fruits, a diet that's focusing on lean protein, a diet that focuses on reducing high fats, lean fats, a diet that's low in saturated fats, a diet that's focusing on minerals such as calcium, magnesium, potassium. These are the things we should focus on, limiting your sweets, your table sugars, and increasing your fiber intake, all right? And so the dietary approach to stop hypertension is what we should focus on. That's the DASH diet to help reduce high blood pressure. That's my time, guys. I love you guys. Remember to like and subscribe, and remember that we can lower our blood pressure by focusing on our diet. All right. Peace.